This is a presentation on the Switch Web Services module, and also more specifically on the PHP sample that is provided with it, and how this can be used, installed and adapted. The Switch Web Services module is an optional module to integrate Switch in a different environment, and that is usually, but does not necessarily have to be, a website. The technical method in which the integration is done is based on SOAP. SOAP can be seen as XML over HTTP, so there is this third-party application that is sending SOAP requests to Switch, and Switch will respond to them. And as this is done over HTTP, there is a large flexibility in the configuration, so both programs do not necessarily have to be within the same LAN, and so on. What are the advantages of using Switch Web Services versus developing your own page in which you provide upload functionality and the ability to enter metadata? Well, it's very easy to do, as you will see in the PHP sample later on in the presentation. It's also fully functional, meaning that you could use it as an easy and quick to implement standalone setup for file submission. And the metadata fields, and also the both for submit points and for checkpoints, are dynamic. So whenever you make a change in your Switch environment, this is automatically reflected in the web services, so there is no need to do any modifications at that level. So when you look at it from a web development perspective, using the Switch Web Services allows to spend less development time on implementing the website compared to when everything has to be done natively. Now let's have a look at the PHP sample that comes with Switch Web Services module. There are 4 things you need to do. First of all, you have to get the PHP server up and running. Now, that is not the topic of this presentation. There are lots of combinations of PHP servers with operating system versions, so please consult the documentation of your operating system or of the PHP server that you are installing separately. Once your PHP server is up and running, there will be what is called a document root, which is the entry point of your PHP server, and that is where you will have to install the sample. After having installed it, you need to configure it, set a few basic pieces of information, and then test to see whether it works. And if you have followed all instructions correctly, then it should. And then you come to the final phase of customizing the sample, where perhaps certain strings need to be changed. Perhaps you need to use a different color scheme and things like that. Before going into the technical details of how the PHP sample is organized, let me give you a quick idea of what the sample looks like. There are 2 pages we will be working with. So first of all, there is a start page, which contains some welcome messages, banners, links to other pages, whatever, plus a section that allows the user to log on. So let me do that. And after having logged on, this will take me to a second page, which is the one we call the workspace. And this is where we will be showing submit points. This is also where we will be showing checkpoints. And of course, as on the start page, there can be any other piece of information, banner, whatever it is you feel should be on there to surround the actual workspace. Yeah? So you see also the thumbnails that are being shown. There's a download capability. There is the metadata for the checkpoints as well, and a logout button. Now that you have an idea what it looks like, I'm going to explain to you how it is all built up and how you can modify that to suit your requirements. Now, here is what the structure of the sample looks like. So at the top level, immediately under our web sample folder, we have the index.php file, which is the starting page of the sample that you have just seen, and the one to which it links through, the workspace page, is described in switchworkspace.php. Now, in this particular case, they're in a subfolder. If you are running nothing else on this particular website, you may want to choose to move all of this one level up so it is directly in the root of the website. But if there is, of course, already something in the root of the website, probably also with already an index.php, of course you need to take care that you are not overwriting stuff from the master website into which you are integrating. Now, in the subdirectories, there are a few which are of interest to us, and a few where we will simply make use of without actually changing anything. In the first one I want to mention is the settings.php file in the settings folder. This is a very important file. You will see that later on. Then we have the CSS folder. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets and is a method of formatting the HTML that is being shown in your browser independently of the HTML code itself. So a choice of font, a choice of whether you want a border around a certain element or not, what the alignment is, what color it uses, whether it has a background or not. All that sort of layout information is described in CSS files. The sample also uses a couple of icons and images, which are in the images folder, and the real core PHP files that do all the calculations, that take care of the communication with Switch, are all to be found in the include folder. Now, these are normally files that you won't need to touch to get the sample up and running, and also files you don't have to touch if you want to customize it, unless you want to take it really a lot further than the customization we will be presenting. Now that the sample has been installed, we need to configure it. And for configuring it, we have to be in the settings subfolder in the settings.php file. We simply open this up with a text application. There is also no need to be a real PHP expert to understand what is going on here and to configure the sample to fit your requirements. There's quite a lot of documentation in the file, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, the first thing we will need to define is the root of the sample itself, which in our particular case is a variable, PHP variable, that points to the document root of the PHP server and in the subdirectory web sample. So if you do not install the files in the web sample subdirectory, but in one of a different name, no problem, but you will have to identify that here in this file. And here you find the names of the two pages we will be working with. Remember the page showing the login window, the start page, and also the workspace page. Quite obviously, the web services will connect to a switch server, and we will have to define which one we are connecting to. Now, in my particular case, as everything is running on the same computer, I put localhost. But if it's another one, of course, you will have to fill in the name or the IP address. The same for the switch port that is being used. 51008 is the default port. But when you are working with switch proxy, for example, and your web service is connecting to the switch server through the proxy, perhaps you are using different ports. And another thing you need to configure is the time zone you're working in. In our particular case here, Europe/Berlin is a valid one, and here is a link on the web where you can find valid strings for defining the time zone that you're in. And that's basically it to get started. Now, to test this, you go to a web browser and you type the name of the computer where your web service is, or your website is running. So in my particular case, this is localhost, but in the subdirectory web sample and there index.php. If your index.php for the sample is in a different subdirectory, you will have to specify a different name here as well, of course. And when you place the sample directly in the document root of your PHP server, then you don't have to specify anything here, of course. Plus, if your start page, this one, has the name index.php, that is the default the PHP server will be looking for. You don't even have to specify it like that, and simply typing localhost will do the trick. Now, of course, now it doesn't do the trick because in my particular case, the index.php is located in a subdirectory. And you can also see, for that matter, that by not specifying index.php here, that the page still comes up because index.php, as I've already mentioned, is the default file the PHP server will look for. Now, we will, of course, also have to see whether we actually get a connection to our switch server by trying to log in, which was successful. We can see whether we get any submit points, we get any checkpoints, and we can also log out. So now we know that basically our website is working. However, there is still one important thing you need to check. In the include subdirectory, there is a public subdirectory which has to be set to offer read and write privileges to everyone. If that is not the case, then a switch server will not be able to make the thumbnails available to the web sample, and also when you're trying to upload files, these are temporarily stored in the public section before being passed on to a switch server. So when there are no read and write access rights for everyone to that location, the sample will not work. Now that we have the sample working, we can start having a look at how we can customize it. And this customization can be done at the level of how the sample behaves, and also in the way in which it looks. And let's have a look at some of the aspects of how it behaves. First of all, there's the username. So when I log in with these initials, I have an overview of available submit points. There is only one, and there's also the metadata belonging to that is immediately shown. But when I log out and I log in as administrator, I now have a longer list of submit points. And this is because in my switch environment, when I look at the users, the user FP is in the customers group, and the administrator, of course, in the admin group. So for the customers, the only submit point that is being shown to them is this web service submit point, whereas for admin, all the submit points are shown. And for customers, also only the checkpoint, the web service checkpoint in that one flow. So here you see a dynamic behavior of the web service sample using information coming from Switch. That's also clear in the fact that now all of a sudden here the messages appear, and I can click on that and see the messages coming from Switch. The reason for that is that you have to be in the administrator group to see messages. So when the user is not in the administrator group, then the messages are simply not shown. There wouldn't be a point. Now, there's also things you can do in the settings file. It may be that you want to use the Switch Web Services module only for uploading files. In that case, here in the settings file, you make the checkpoints constant. So that's the word that is being used in PHP to refer to such a type of variable. When you make that empty, then checkpoints will not be shown. And here you already see then a way of customizing the look of the site. If you prefer to call this upload files, then simply call this upload files. And when I now log in again, you will see that the checkpoints are not being offered, and what was referred to as submit points is now called upload files. You have seen the dynamic behavior as regards the users, but the same is true for the submit points, and of course also for the checkpoints. So when I change the metadata fields here and I add one, for example, put that at the bottom here, yeah, something else, and that's a text with a certain default in there. Then when I click on OK and I activate that flow again, let me go back to the web service, and when I refresh the list, this something else with default value ABC has dynamically been added. And this is here indeed one of the strong points of using Switch web services rather than building everything yourself. You can also see that in this drop-down list here, for example. So here are a number of job numbers that are being shown, but these job numbers, they actually come from a database query. So let me show you that. Job number here, it's a database query where I pick up job numbers from certain jobs table. If I want to show something else, like for example here, show me the customer references of the active jobs rather than the job numbers, activate the flow, and the next time somebody goes on, or here in this case when I refresh the list, you see that the items that are being displayed here have been dynamically changed because of the change of the database query in Switch. Another thing you can do to influence the behavior of the sample has to do with the login window. It's perfectly conceivable that somebody does not want to put all the users of the Switch Web Services into the Switch server user database, but that the login will happen against another source, like, for example, the users defined in an MIS database. Well, in that case, when we have a look at our settings file, what you can do is you can specify a fixed username and password in there. When we refresh the start page, we see the modified behavior. So there is no longer the login window. Well, the window as such is still there, but the sample no longer requires the user to fill in credentials, but there is simply a link through to the workspace page, as we can see here, with the upload of our files. Plus also the word logout is of course no longer appropriate. So here we call it back. We have seen a couple of ways in which to change the behavior of the sample. Let's now have a look at how we can change the look. First of all, I want to go back to the settings file. You have already seen, and I can only repeat it now, that all of the strings that are being used in the sample have been defined here. So you simply change them. And the next time the page is being used again, the new text will be in place. The sample also uses 3 different colors, 1 font, and 3 different font sizes. So the main color here is the Switch blue. Now, in case you want to use a different color there, you can fill in any HTML color code and that will work. So there is, for example, the word red that you can use, or when you look on the internet for HTML color codes, for example, you will find sites where you can define them, where you pick a specific color of your liking. You simply click on it. Oh no, you have to do it here. You go in. For example, here, which is a bit darker, or to make it clearly visible, I'll change it into a green. And here is the value. You copy it, and you can paste it here, of course, with a crosshatch in front of it. And when I now save the settings file and I refresh the page, you immediately see the changed behavior. So now please don't judge me on my color choice. I'm only illustrating how to do that. The correct choice of color is, of course, up to you. So this is one example. There's, of course, also the font. I'll change that into Courier, and also simply to make it very visible. So I'm changing these values a bit too much so it is clear for everybody, but of course using good values is something that you will be able to do. Also note that here we use EM values, so this is a concept from the typography which is also present in HTML, namely the concept of the EM space. This means that it will follow the size settings of your browser. If you were to fix it to, for example, 10 point, 8 point, then it would always be that point size regardless of what the user specifies as his preferred font sizes in his browser. So I've made the settings, I save the settings.php file, and I refresh the page, and you can see that this text has become larger and this one has become smaller, because those were defined as being large font size, normal font size, and small font size. And of course you have also seen that the Trebuchet font is no longer used, but has now been replaced by Courier. So this is what you can do in the settings file. Now let's move on to what you can do in the CSS files. Remember, in the CSS folder, the cascading style sheets, there are 3 CSS files, one of them in PHP form, and this is the one that we're concerned with, because these other 2 CSSs are for the start and workspace pages. But of course, when you integrate the sample in a larger website, then the CSSs for those pages will already be in place. So let's have a look at this file. Now, CSS, there's also a lot of things you can find on the internet, a lot of resources that you can consult for inspiration. Quite a lot of it is self-explanatory, but it's not always as easy. But nevertheless, I think there are a few easy things that you can do to make the sample look much more the way you want it to look. There are several parts here in the CSS. So there's a part for the login window. Yeah, like for example here we see that the position of the login window is relative. It uses our basic font family. Yeah, if you look at this font constant, that is the one that we found here in our settings. Yeah, font, and that is Courier. So this is the way in which we make sure that the font change is done all across the board, and not just in the different places, so you don't have to do search and replace in several files and in dozens of locations. It's all just concentrated in one location. Yeah. There is, for example, a 1 pixel solid border around it. Again, to exaggerate things a little bit, to make it visually obvious, let me make that 5 points. When I save this file now, I go back here, yeah, you immediately see the change here in the border around it, which is now 5 pixels instead of just 1. Let's take another example. So these are all CSS definitions that belong to the login window. Here we come to the workspace page, and we have the user menu at the top, so the one that shows submit points, checkpoints, messages, log out. Yeah. As we can see, the height of that one here is 29 pixels. You want it to be a bit more. Again, it may not look pretty. I'm just exaggerating things a little bit to show you the principles. The actual implementation is, of course, then up to you. Here, these are the unordered list items. You can see that here. The UL is HTML code for unordered list, and the LI for list item. The color is support color 1 because they are on top of a UL, which is in the background color, the main color. So here, if you want to change the color scheme around, you could do that. Or if you want to space, for example, the words submit point, checkpoint further apart, you could increase the padding. So let me increase the padding on the right, for example, and I save that. And when I now go in here, we see that there's a somewhat bigger space now between upload files and back, and we also see that the height of this user menu has been increased. To finalize this presentation, I would also like to give you a few hints as to how you can integrate this sample in an existing master website. When you're integrating, we can assume that there will already be an index.php file that shows the page or describes the page the way in which it is shown in a browser. So what you need to do is pick a few elements out of the index.php file of the sample and transfer these into your own index.php file. So let's have a look at the index.php. And it's nicely documented here with Switch Web Services showing copy this PHP section and place it at the top of your customized file. Right, so this whole part, well, of course you can take out the comments if you don't want to have those, but at least if you don't have the include of the settings.php, if you don't have the include of the switch client service and so on, then it's not going to work. Yeah? There's another one here. Copy the line following this comment and place it after the title and before the head of your start page. And there's also one here, the div for the login window that you need to copy. And in the same vein, when you look at the switch workspace.php file, there too it is described what you need to copy, like here this the scripts that are being relied upon, the links to the CSSs and so on. Here there's the one for the info box where you can see login successful and so on. Don't know whether you noticed. And there's also a couple of divs that you have to copy here. And if you do that correctly in the correct location, then it will look fine. Now this may require, of course, a little bit of fine-tuning, but all in all, I would think that with a couple of hours of work, you could quite easily integrate this sample into an existing website and make it look nice within that other website in terms of its color schemes, fonts, etc. This brings me to the end of the presentation on the PHP sample of the Switch Web Services module. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that there is a 22-page PDF document that explains the setup of your PHP server in a bit more detail. Plus you will also find some examples of customizations other than the ones that I have shown you. And I wish you a lot of good luck implementing this. And if you have any questions or remarks or bugs to report, then we would like to hear from you. Thank you, and bye-bye.